Nerdiest Prime.
Hi, and welcome to Nerdiest Prime, where we are reviewing every episode of Season 3 of Picard. We are at the last episode. I'm very excited, and we have a special guest, Jenny R. Johnson, who is a painter of science fiction and Star Trek, amongst many other things. And you're going to join us, Jenny, for our last review of Picard.
I'm very happy to be here.
And we are happy to have you. Let's start right away with our first impressions. Let's start with Namir.
Okay, so I don't know what to say because, okay, I'm just going to be honest here. I really, really wanted to like it. I really did. I wanted to like it so much, but I didn't. And I don't know why. It didn't work for me. And we could talk about why. There's a couple of things that I didn't really like. I'm not a big fan of the Borg. I think it was kind of overdone quite a bit. I didn't feel like they finished the Picard story in a way that was satisfying. So just in terms of overall impressions, I was kind of disappointed, but I feel really bad about being disappointed.
Let's hear from Jenny.
I probably have the complete opposite opinion. But I think that'll make things interesting. I am very, very satisfied. I also, for me, it's very much just about the characters, not necessarily the overarching plot. That's kind of the main focus for me when I'm sort of deciding, like, how do I feel about this? So yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I'm a very happy camper today.
Okay, let's hear from Alan.
I was overall happy with most of it. Like Jenny said, the characters were again what made this episode shine. Seeing the Enterprise D in action was cool. I enjoyed that, but I think the overall, like I said, the plot, the Borg plot, the invasion, I didn't get the sense of scale and spectacle that I was hoping for. I think I just wanted a little more out of this than it could give, on that respect. But the character moments, they continue to be the best part of this show, and I think that it's just a collection of moments for me that I enjoyed in this, more so than like say the overarching storyline that they're happening within.
Okay, I want to say that I like this episode, and I'm saying that very clearly at the top because I'm going to give it a really hard time. I'm going to make fun of it all throughout this review. So just in case there's any ambiguity whether I like the episode or not, I like it, but it's crazy. It's like a crazy episode. So the first thing is I really liked how they did a special Star Trek logo for this episode specifically.
I noticed that right away too.
Yeah, we had the Enterprise D and then the Borg. It was so silly, and I just love when they do stuff like that. When I don't know if they do it that much anymore, but I remember in the 90s they would do like the 20th Century Fox logo or the Universal logo, and they would change it if there was like, I remember for like Twister, they like it kind of the logo blew away, and stuff like that. So we're back with the Borg. I mean, let's just talk about, because the whole, this episode is all about the resolution of the plot. And we're going to get into the specifics, but I just wanted to get a sense overall of how we felt things got resolved. Like, I guess we sort of just talked about it in our first impressions. But I feel like we just did. Maybe we don't need to do that.
Well, I could elaborate some too.
And then I would like to also elaborate afterwards.
Okay, who wants to go first?
Namir can go first. Let him.
Oh, no, I don't want to. Okay.
You have notes.
They're not. I can't read them. They're not good notes. So I think my issue is that when they did the logo thing, I got really excited because I was like, that's really cool, right? And as you were saying, like when they do that, they did it in The Matrix and Indiana Jones, and all of these things. You're like, that's setting up something epic, right? That's the only reason you would do it, and it didn't happen. So the promise of it was amazing, and then there was no follow through, right? Like I really felt like there should have been. It just kind of felt like a regular episode of Star Trek, right? And it's not supposed to be. Like, this is the episode that's supposed to wrap up 3 seasons of Picard, however many seasons of TNG and Voyage. It's supposed to wrap up everything, right? Because it's the 7, yeah. So it's supposed to wrap up everything. But it didn't do that, right? It was just like, oh, it's another Borg queen. And who knows which Borg queen this is? I kind of lost track. Like, where did she come from? What,
Hey. You can just
See, your dog agrees with me.
Another critic.
Another critic. And so it kind of felt like it was just kind of tacked on, like really it should have been something. I do wish that there was somebody else behind the Borg, like an introduction of another race or something else.
Like the parasites,
Actually, yeah, you know what I was thinking. I was like, it would be kind of cool if a parasite fell out of Alice Creek. That would be amazing, right? But it didn't happen, and it just kind of fell flat for me. Not a lot of it made sense. There was no Borg in the Borg cube. I know they were dead, but there was only like 3 of them. So everything that made the Borg feel menacing and really just like this huge threat just wasn't there for me. So it, and it was only like the episode's an hour long, and it was 40 minutes of that, and then 20 minutes of wrap up, right? So that stuff didn't last very long, and that's what I wanted to see. I really wanted to see this thing have like a really super intense epic conclusion, and I kind of didn't.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, was I didn't feel like there were planet Federation ending stakes. Like, we didn't see people dying, and you were just seeing little ships firing phasers willy-nilly all over the place. And
I was like, I wasn't satisfied because it didn't satisfy my bloodlust.
There wasn't enough death, yeah. But no, like when they said they were targeting all these cities, like I wanted to see like an attack happen, people screaming, I don't know, some sense of urgency and panic and stakes where they penetrated and you're like, oh my god, this might be the end of everything. And I just felt like they were taking their sweet ass time opening fire on Earth's major cities. When they're right there and they talk about the shields are down, and I think there was still several minutes before it actually, they destroyed the beacon or whatever. And I'm like, they could have did a lot of damage in that amount of time. I mean, in the amount of time it'd take me to listen to a song, I mean, an orbiting spaceship with photon torpedoes and lasers could lay waste to a lot of stuff. And, so I just think they didn't give enough time. Like, I feel like if they hadn't got rid of that like hostage situation episode 2-parter or whatever, and had made this a bigger, more epic scope where there was like a planetary story happening and a space story happening and a one-on-one against the villain, if these things were all working together, it would have been a lot more exciting. But at the same time, I think my mind had so much craziness built up, like the expectation, the reality was never going to live up to that. Because I'm thinking like a $200 million budget here in my head. And I'm like, it's just an episode of TV. I'm like, I gotta bring my expectations down. And that's and at the same time, the adult me, not the 13-year-old me who likes to see things go boom, says, oh, it's really about the characters. I'm like, I should not be worrying about this so much. I should just focus on the characters, because that's ultimately what we should be here for and are here for. So
Okay, while your 12-year-old self gets a psychological assessment, then we're gonna talk to Jenny.
Personally, I know that the Borg have been done, and we've seen a lot of Borg through Star Trek Picard itself. I was happy to see a resolution of some kind because, Janeway left them in the Delta Quadrant, like hamstrung, but not necessarily gone. So I liked seeing an idea of like what the result of that was, the idea that the Borg Queen ends up alone and dying-ish and angry and trying to figure out a way to keep surviving and also kind of have some vengeance. Yeah, I think I definitely came into this with kind of like a little wish list, but I didn't have expectations. I don't know, I'm kind of good at that. Like, I'm like, it would be nice to see this. It would be nice to see that, but I'm just going to kind of sit back and just see where they take me. I know what you mean about the sort of seeing the other side of the attack in some way. We saw the space dock completely destroyed, which was actually really impressive. Like that was like a great effect, seeing that kind of crumble, and even just one or two shots of someone inside, getting crushed or something, exactly right. Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, I totally get it. But again, I mean, honestly, I think the budget definitely, there's only so far they can go with the budget.
All they had to do is do what they did in Generations, which is like reuse shots of Klingons getting blown up in Star Trek 6. They had a whole like 7 seasons of TNG. Let's pick this guy getting blown up and this guy getting blown up, and we'll just insert them.
That one Klingon that gets like thrown down the corridor, yeah.
Oh, yeah, in reverse.
Oh. And in terms of the spectacle, what we saw with the Borg cube and the Enterprise, I thought was pretty sick.
Yeah, and
awesome.
I'm really surprised with Alan and Namir. I thought I was gonna be the stick in the mud again, but I'm not, because I had a really good time watching this episode and I didn't feel disappointed. I think because I was sort of disappointed in the last episode when it turned out it wasn't parasites behind the door, and then I'm like, okay, it's the Borg.
That was an unrealistic expectation. There was no way it was going to be parasites. I was rooting for you though. I was like, yeah, I hope Lucas gets this.
So I already didn't get my Christmas. So, whatever was going to be in the presents was going to be good enough for me.
Well, I didn't get Sela, so
That's right. You didn't get Sela.
By that too.
So that was all a misdirection when when Denise Crosby said she had a cameo or had some involvement. She just meant that little Tasha hologram that they 3D'd. But I feel like I'm missing something in the Borg timeline.
I might be able to help with that.
Yeah, because I don't know what happened, because I thought I'm confused. Basically, what happened before this thing that all the Borg on that ship were half dead, and then the Borg Queen was like disfigured, and it was like something happened, and I feel like I missed it.
Okay. The last time that we saw the actual Borg, because the Borg that we saw in season 2 of Picard weren't the real Borg.
Right.
That queen was alternate universe queen.
Boragi? What did you call her?
Borgeoisie. Yeah.
Borgeoisie,
yeah.
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So the last time that we actually saw the real Borg was at the end of Voyager, when Admiral Janeway put the virus into the collective and like collapsed a bunch of the what are they called? The
transwarp conduits.
Thank you. Yeah. So we didn't really know what happened. We knew that the Borg Queen was hurt, but we didn't sort of see anything past that.
Okay, so that is the last thing. I thought maybe I missed something.
So that's the same Borg Queen. It's not a new Borg Queen that did the same one, exact same one. Yeah. Okay.
The neurogenic pathogen or whatever Janeway infected them with decimated the Borg. And Well, Shaw even says at some point in this season that the Borg were still licking their wounds in the Delta Quadrant, basically referencing Janeway's actions. And this Borg queen was basically eating her own drones to survive and just drifting around space, getting angrier and angrier.
Didn't she also destroy like the trans warp conduits? I thought all that stuff was gone. Weren't they stuck in the Delta Quadrant?
What?
Weren't the Borg stuck in the Delta? I read all I could because I was like, I'm not watching all this, so I read it.
I think they technically were. I think that was part of what she said, that they were stuck. But I assume at some point in the next 25 years, she found a way to get closer.
In Endgame, they find a Borg trans warp hub. So that's basically they can go wherever they want throughout the galaxy from here. There's like 5 or 6 of them. So basically, Voyager had a plan to destroy this one, and it crippled their whole network. And then they rode the shockwave back to the Alpha Quadrant, traveling through the Borg conduit, and that's how they got home.
So it's basically like somehow Emperor Palpatine came back, kind of thing. It's the same idea, right?
Festering and rotting for 30 years, just thinking. Making
okay,
plans.
All right, that's fine. I can buy that. I'm okay with that.
I loved the Borg Queen in this episode. It was like I wasn't sure. I don't think it was Alice Cridge. I think it was an actual Muppet. They had a little Muppet.
No, in the credits, there's an actress who's credited with the role, but yeah, Alice Krieg's doing the voice. At first I thought it was animatronic too, but then there was like a credit for an actress for that role.
It had a real like James Cameron Aliens. Xenomorph Queen. Kind of yeah. It was fantastic. It was awesome. But I really liked the Borg in this. I didn't mind. I liked that they were all like falling apart, and I also think that just in terms of plotting and like stakes, often the mistake can be like you kind of make it too big, and it just becomes kind of overwhelming, and you can't relate to it. So by making the Borg kind of still, crippling along and having a hard time, it kind of made it like more even odds, and it made it believable that they could be men and, and do their whole Mission Impossible mission and all that stuff.
I know, but but the Borg aren't supposed to be relatable, right? Like they're supposed to be something that's totally alien or not understandable by people. That's what makes them a threat, right? Because they're a collective, and we don't think that way, but they do. So it's like, how do we fight this thing that we don't understand? So I guess I kind of wanted to see more of that, right? I'd like those scenes where you see, thousands and thousands of Borg in the in the Borg cube, and they didn't do that, and that's like a staple, right? They always do that. But they didn't do it this time around. And they had zombie Borg. They had Zomborgs, but they didn't like do anything with them. Right? It was just the 3 of them. And I was like, you could have had a Zomborg horde, and it didn't happen. So I don't want to be too critical, because I did actually like it. Like as we talk about it, I'm like, yeah, there was stuff that I liked about it, but I just wanted more. It's like when you go to McDonald's and you have a Happy Meal and you're like, that was pretty good. And then you leave and you're like, oh, I feel terrible. That's what it felt like to me.
Well, it's funny because there's been a lot of scenes where they go on the Borg cube. Where like in Q-Who, they go on the Borg cube, and then in Scorpion and Voyager, they go on the Borg cube. So there's these scenes now that are like we're like slithering around the Borg cube, and this one was a good one. I felt like it had a really good atmosphere, a little spookiness. And it was like, of course, finally, we're going to see a little Worf on Borg action. It was like, whoosh, doing a little Steven Seagal on them. It was so awesome.
Yeah, that was great. Swords are fun. Riker couldn't pick it up. I loved that they went back to the Next Generation style with the bulky suit. and like everything looked like from the TNG era Borg. It wasn't like the Voyager Borg where they're all like wearing leather and they're sleek and they look kind of half organic and they're all greenish. I was like, I like the pasty face and the bulky rubber suit and the big cables hanging out of their head. I was hoping somebody gets some yanked out, but no, they didn't do that. I mean, I guess Picard did a bit to Jack, but I really want to see Worf just yank some cables out of their heads and them go. But I like the retro look for the Borg in this one. Yeah, it didn't make any sense because last time we saw the Queen, they were all kind of the Voyager style, but you know, I still like that visually we had the TNG style.
We really got to see the Enterprise D in action in this episode, which I loved so much. That was, I think, probably my favorite part of the episode was Data going, "Please let me fly this thing through the Death Star. Please let me fly it through the Death Star."
I was very happy because I was like, that's what I texted my friend who was watching it this morning too, and they're like, I was like, they're doing the Millennium Falcon run into the Death Star with the D. I'm like, this is amazing.
I don't want to say that they ripped me off, but 10 years ago, I did a mashup on YouTube where I made the Millennium Falcon go inside the Borg cube, and I think Terry Matalas saw that and he put it in the episode.
Very likely.
Yeah, you should call him and say, "Did you take this from me?" Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then Crusher's all like on the controls. I feel like Crusher and Troy were a lot more like Ellen Ripley in this version of Star Trek, especially Crusher. And I like that moment because when she was firing all the weapons, I was going, "She's a doctor. This doesn't make any sense that she would know how to do this." But then I'm like, "Oh no, it's been 20 years that she's been on the run and all this stuff." And then there was that exact moment where they all looked at her and it had the exact same process that I had.
I love that. Definitely. It's those two characters have been so underused. It's just really nice, like seeing them doing things that are useful,
Yeah, well, it's funny because I'm just in the middle of rewatching TNG. Like I'm in season 3, and I'm just like, and there's some good stuff in there, like good Crusher Torres stuff, but they are so underused, and it's so frustrating to see the like.
They basically put them in caregiver roles a lot in that show and sideline them. Like in Cupid, where there's like everybody's sword fighting, and then Troy and Crusher come up with their clay pots to knock people over the head, and I'm like, really? They couldn't give him a sword?
But did you hear the story that Gates McFadden said that her and Marina Sirtis were the only two people who were actually trained to sword fight, and all the men had never been trained, but they were given this like, we're gonna throw clay pots.
Yeah, I miss the Troy from season 1, right? Like season 1 Troy had much more to do. Like she was much more like part of like the bridge crew and was advising Picard, and Picard would look to her not only about, oh, how is this person feeling, but like, how do you manage the ship? How do you run this away team? Like she had much more of an involvement, and that kind of disappeared. And I don't think she ever really got it back. But she was great in that role.
Namir, you like season 1 way too much. I'm just gonna say that right now.
I love season 1. I don't know what to tell you. I no, you know what? You say that now, but we went through all of season 1, and you guys are like, oh yeah, this episode's pretty good too. Oh yeah, this one's pretty good. Like, and that was most of the time. So don't give me any of your nonsense.
Did you guys notice that the Riker did the Riker maneuver on this in the show?
No.
I did not see that.
Are you talking about like when he sits in a chair from the back?
But what he did is he went up to I think it was behind LaForge, and he put his foot up on, when he puts his foot up on that's the Riker maneuver too.
I did not see that.
They probably had it where he put his leg over a chair, and then Jonathan Frakes was like, I'm 70 years old. I can't do that anymore. Can I just do a prop? Can I just do a prop up?
Yeah. He's like, I'm gonna pull everything.
We need medical assistance.
I'm sorry, when they took over the Titan and they got onto the bridge, when 7-9 and Raffi and all those guys got on the bridge, and the other Borgs were like, they shot them and like transported them into the transporter room and locked them in there. How did the other Borg not automatically know that the Titan was compromised and just turn around and shoot the Titan or whatever they're going to do? You know what I mean? Because aren't they all the Borg interconnected? They're all talking on their little Wi-Fi.
Well, I think they were talking to them because then they said you must retake the Titan, like the voices were telling them.
Yeah.
And then they were just kind of forcing to trying to get out of the transporter room where they were trapped. So they were trying, but they were just trapped in the parts of the ship.
But really, they could have just blown up the Titan at that point,
and then, well, that's when they were using the cloaking device. They were cloaking and uncloaking and doing strafing runs and then cloaking again and just trying to cause disorder.
No, there was a full 5 minutes before they started cloaking where they were just sitting around talking on the bridge. And again, I like the episode. I'm just saying.
I don't know. I think that's like suspension of disbelief. I think you're just gonna have to deal with that.
Like when they had Hugh on the Enterprise, they used like force shield dampening situation to cut him off from the collective. So maybe Seven being Seven knew that had to happen, and they did something.
She just did like she did this, and then with her little implants, just like put a little dampening field around the whole ship. Okay, I got it.
Or maybe most of this episode doesn't make any sense, so it doesn't really matter. is my thinking.
Well, like in the grand scheme of Star Trek now, as I finished this for a second time and thought about it, I'm like, did the Borg Queen's revenge plan totally hinge on the chance that Picard would have sex with somebody and have a kid with them? It seems like I just need to wait for him to get lucky. It's like I can put my fiendish plan into motion.
She's in the background trying to make it happen, sending chocolates to Crusher, flowers to Picard. I think I found a match, you guys.
She's like a Tinder account, just catfishing.
At the point that DNA was left behind in Picard, the Borg were still like a superpower, right? So she wasn't bent on revenge at that point. And she was just, I think it was just a crapshoot. Like, let's see what happens if we do this.
Many eggs in her basket, in her revenge basket.
No, I think Jenny's right. Like, I think it was they were doing fine, and then they were decimated, and then all of a sudden the Borg Queen was like, "Where's that signal coming from? There's something interesting over there." And then so then she just kind of made the connection. Is like, okay, I need Jack.
Did anybody else think that the Borg Queen was kind of like the witch in Snow White? She had the little evil cackle when Picard showed up.
Yeah, she's like an archetypal bad guy. So there's gonna have to be a moment where she tells Picard her whole plan, and there's going to be a moment where she laughs because she thinks she's going to win. Yeah. And then, she doesn't horribly. Oh, that's okay.
And she's not like the sexy Borg Queen anymore, so.
Yeah, that's for darn sure. Well, I mean, who knows what people are into. Yeah, exactly.
So now we have Locutus Junior. We had a Locutus Junior in this episode. How do we all feel about Locutus Junior? Let's start with Jenny, just because we started with Alan last time.
I thought that was actually pretty cool. Like you said, the suit was awesome. Like the suit really sold it. I think if he'd just been plugged in and kind of it wouldn't have, it was very clear what was happening. I mean, and even like the callback to like Locutus's original laser thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I thought that was pretty cool. And in terms of how that, seeing that would affect Picard, I think that was very nicely done, I think. And I think it it made sense based on what they'd already established with his character, like his, looking for connections all through his life and having that sort of just this feeling of being alone or isolated. That definitely made sense in him getting into the collective and feeling at home, having that so I think that part of the story made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like Jack. I thought he was a really good character. I think if they had made him like Wesley, then I don't think I would have bought it. But he's more like a combination of Kirk and Picard, which I think is really interesting. So
and Han Solo.
Yeah, not Solo. Yeah, he's a space pirate, exactly. So, would I watch a show with him in it? Yeah, I think I would. Like, he's an interesting character, played by a really good actor. So I think that was okay. That made sense to me, and I'm glad they kind of chose him and did it in the way that they did. So I was happy with that. That didn't bother me.
Yeah, again, I like everything that Ed Spieler. I can't say his name, but that actor. I love the work he's doing. Like, he's a great casting choice. I mean, so often it's difficult to sell this material, and he does a really good job with the space opera, the dialogue and all that. So yeah, he's been a interesting addition to the Star Trek universe, and if he shows up in a spinoff, then I'm all for it too. So and all the father son stuff there on the Borg cube was all good. Like I enjoyed that. There was a good emotional payoff there, and I have no complaints about any of the character work in this show. All those moments played really great for me, and I liked all the hugging. It all gave me warm fuzzies, and there was
lots of hugging.
Yes, there's so many hugs. Yeah, Worf was huggy, and Picard was huggy, and Riker was huggy. Everybody's huggy. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the hand of the writing, and that was a bit my complaint in the last episode, where everything's all set up, so we're gonna like feel a certain way in a certain beat, and so I didn't like that, the fact that I could sort of see the writing. Having said that, they had made good choices. It was well constructed. I think it was good for them to set up this idea of Jack being alone and being not an orphan, but basically being apart from everything else, and then having the Borg kind of pull on those emotional heartstrings, and then lo and behold, the only thing he needed was a hug from Daddy, and then it solved all his problems.
I think I called that last week. That was going to be the conclusion of this, was humanity and compassion and love would win out over totalitarian cybernetic beings. Yeah.
I think maybe it might be the first time that the universe was saved by a hug. That was the resolution. That was the whole solution. It was like, it's just, best of both worlds. It was like, make them sleep, and this one is just give them a hug, and then everything fell apart.
Make them feel a human connection so they don't feel a cybernetic one.
Yeah.
Why did the Borg Queen let them into the cube? Because remember, they're on the Enterprise, and then all the weapons kind of power down, and then the door opens, and then somebody says something, and Picard's like, "That's an invitation," and then they go, "But why? Why did that happen?"
Because it's in the script. That's why.
Jack let him in, maybe? I don't know.
She may also have had a personal kind of, come here and see what I did, like, I've got this, I've got him, I don't even need you, but I want you to see it,
Yeah, that was my feeling. That was, I think, the justification in the script, was that the Borg Queen wanted to basically gloat a little bit.
Or he wanted Picard to complete the family unit, and they could just live happily ever after as husband and wife and Borg Junior.
Did you guys notice that that Troy pulls a Shinzon in this as a callback to Nemesis in this episode?
She feels strong empathic connection to someone and tracks them.
Yeah. I don't understand how that makes any sense whatsoever, but okay, fine. I'll go with it.
I think it makes
but
more
that makes
sense
sense.
in this with her connection with Riker than it did
Yes.
in Nemesis, I think, actually.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
they have like a long established connection to each other, like
Yeah,
whereas she isn't just going his feelings, she's like she could hear him.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
a little bit different, I think.
It was a good character moment for Riker and Troy that they have that his love for her emanated out enough that she could find him. So, it's like, another warm fuzzy moment.
And nobody died. Alan, you predicted that Picard was going to die. Was it you or was it Namir?
Namir said that. I said Worf would die heroically rescuing some. Well, but they already got easily rescued several episodes ago.
Well, he got close. He got close to dying, but he just needed a nap, and then he turned out it was okay.
I like how, the close-up shot, it was funny that he's snoring, and then the wide shot, he's clearly, like, awake and positioning himself in the chair, and I'm like, oh, they just killed that joke. He should be, like, just sitting there passed out. But yeah, it was still funny.
No, I did think he was going to die. Everything kind of was leading up to that, and I, in the episode where they're about to go onto the, into the cube, he's saying goodbye to everybody, and he takes one last look at the bridge, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna bite it for sure. And then they are on the ship. But it was him. Everyone was saying goodbye to him specifically, right? And then they're on the cube, and then he's like, it was a pleasure serving with you, Riker and Worf as your captain. And then they split ways, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's gonna die. And I was okay with that because I thought that would have been a really good way to end his story. So I was a little bit disappointed because, it felt like if he, not that, I didn't want him to die. I'm not,
kill an iconic character.
No, I just think it would have been a great ending to his story arc, right? Like if he gave himself up so that his son could live, right? So he could finally be, the father that he was always supposed to be by kind of doing the ultimate act and essentially saving not only his son, but saving the entire, basically, galaxy, right? And the only thing that he needed to do was to die to do it. And he's like 90, so it kind of makes sense, right? But, I feel like that kind of was built into the story. And I bet that they had conversations about that. But I feel like at the last minute, they're like, nah, we can't kill him. He'll make it out of this okay.
We've already killed him once.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's it. You can't kill him. He's in this robotic body, so it doesn't matter. The Borg cube blows up, he'll just be floating in space.
I mean, I think the fact, all of those goodbyes and all of, and him being prepared to die was kind of a completion of the arc that he's been on, because and that's counting like the first 2 seasons of Picard, which I know not everyone does. But in, where he started off at the beginning, where he was completely closed off to everyone, he had all of this baggage and trauma that he was carrying around, and we get to this point and he's not just willing to sacrifice himself, but he's doing everything he can to save his son, because he's finally able to love, he's finally able to let someone else love him. The power of love, you guys.
Yeah, I buy it. I mean, I do, and that makes complete sense to me. But I think I just would have liked to have seen him kind of take that step, right, where he just kind of lets go, and he's like, "This is the last great thing that I can do with my long and storied life." But he didn't do it, and I just it just left a bad taste in my mouth.
There was a moment there where I thought they were going to actually kill off Picard, Riker, and Worf, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's gonna be 4 of them left. It's gonna be like they're gonna kill those 3 on the Borg ship." And then And then they didn't. My theory is they actually did kill them. And then by the time they got to episode 7, they realized how popular the show was. And then they got them to come back and they reshot the scene. That's why that's why when they blow up the Borg cube, it takes like 15 minutes for it to blow up. You know, they shot the thing in the middle, the power reactor thing, and then it you know, when they blew up the Death Star, it didn't take 15 minutes to blow up. The Millennium Falcon was like hightailing out of there, and there was like they almost didn't make it out. And this thing, they had a whole conversation, and they had a lot of things to talk about, and then they're like, maybe
didn't make it out either. They were coming out of the explosion as well. The flames were coming around the shields as they flew out.
It took them a long time. Did you see that maze they had to navigate? It's like all over the place.
Well,
man.
and it was also hiding in the red spot of Jupiter, and isn't that thing like the size of like 100 Earths or something? I don't even know how many. Like
2 Earths?
2 Earths. Still, how long would
They're
it
pretty big.
take 2 Earths to blow up? If it started like you started little chain reaction explosions, how long would it take this planet to blow up? And all the volcanoes suddenly started erupting or whatever. You know, it'd take a while. Wouldn't it?
No, but the cube wasn't the size of 2 Earths. The cube was like this little dot in the red spot of Jupiter. For some reason, Picard's like, oh, there it is. I see it. He's like 90 years old. He's like, I see it right there.
So nobody died.
I think people were expecting Picard to die. Maybe they were just subverting the expectation that he would die.
They definitely set it up so that we all thought they were going to die, and then they pulled the rug. They're like, oh.
They did.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm happy that they survived. I didn't want anybody to die.
Somebody should have died. I wanted one death. That's it.
You need your final gang all together before the credits, so you couldn't kill anyone and get that scene.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They learned that lesson on Nemesis. They killed Data on Nemesis, and then that was the worst Star Trek movie opening of all time. They're not going to make that mistake again. I noticed that whereas Data was the comic relief in the show, that in this series, Worf is the comic relief. He's all the jokes.
I feel like a lot of the humor always, even through the series, came from Worf and Data. Like there was plenty of great, funny Worf moments, like when he's taking a mud bath with Mrs. Troy, or he's like, drink prune juice as a warrior's drink, and all. He was always a
Good tea. Nice house.
Nice house.
yeah, exactly. All that. Worf had lots of great little lines like that through the series, so I think he's always been a major source of comic relief along with Data.
I think because the nature of what's going on with Data, like this Data, I feel like it doesn't. I mean, he's he has some humor, but I think it's he's on a different kind of journey through this and Worf is. I don't know. I think they've honestly over the years figured out that Michael Dorn has really that his comic timing is excellent, and they just want to use it.
He's got a great deadpan delivery for everything.
His back and forth with Riker throughout
so good.
the series has been just, oh my god.
Yeah.
Did you hear yourself?
Oh yeah, the threesome.
I will make it a threesome.
Yeah, you know what? I would love to watch a show with just the two of them, like a buddy cop show with Riker and Worf, and they're like in a little ship solving crimes in the galaxy. That would be amazing.
Definitely.
We'll call it Lethal Space.
You're not allowed to come up with titles.
No, I was just thinking. We were talking about Data's line last week about when Geordi tells him to tells him to think positive, and I just rewatched The Price from season 3, and there's a moment like that where they're in the Delta Quadrant, and Geordi says, I really wouldn't want to get stuck here for the rest of my life in this shuttlecraft. And then Data says, well, think on the bright side, you would have me to talk to. And it was exactly the same kind of moment. Okay. TNG is awesome. Everything but TNG is awesome.
Especially season 1. Season 1 is the best. So good.
Okay, so I this is just me. There's a couple of series like things that I've been wanting to say all along, but they're not specific to one episode. There's just the whole season. Two things. The first thing is positive is I've really been paying attention to the reuse of music because I'm a big fan of the soundtrack, the Star Trek soundtrack, and I love that they brought back specifically the music from First Contact. For the main titles and also for the end credits, and then in this episode they brought in a piece from Generations. It's a song that plays at the very end of Generations when Riker and Picard are on the bridge and they're talking about time is this and that and the other thing, and I'm going to live forever, and that exact piece of music they did that same at the very end when it's Geordi, when they park the ship and Geordi says, shut down all the...
Oh, nice. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't even think it was re-recorded. I think they just put the CD in and just put it in the Avid. I think that's all they did. Oh, and also, I've noticed actually throughout Picard in general that they use the Borg theme that Jerry Goldsmith came up with for First Contact. It was like the 3 bars. I can't do it.
Well, you only did 2. What's the third one?
I think that's the music I was always like confusing with V'ger's theme from Motion Picture. I thought there was gonna be some connection to V'ger throughout this whole series. It never transpired. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's what it was. Okay, and so my other comment about throughout the whole season is these fucking weird commercial breaks. Do you guys notice the weird commercial breaks? There's like no commercial breaks, but there's kind of like a fade as if there's gonna be a commercial break, and then a cut, and it's just like the worst.
I didn't notice it in the last few episodes, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I did notice that, and I thought it was weird too, but I didn't think too much about it. But it's like a moment where it's like the sound fades out, and then it cuts to nothing, and then it comes back, and the sound fades up again. And you're like, what was that? Why did that even happen? Because I thought it was just streaming. I didn't realize that they were actually showing it on broadcast.
Yeah, they show it on the CTV Sci-Fi channel on Thursday nights. So that's just in Canada. I don't know where else it might broadcast on TV, but it is broadcast, so there would be commercial. As my dad would always say, commercial lead-in music, and he would get ready to go to the bathroom when he would watch Star Trek back in the 90s.
Amazing.
But do you think then that they're not writing, because they used to write episodes taking that into account, right? Like they would have like the 5-act structure because of the commercials. And so maybe now when they're writing it, they're not considering that, because they're like, well, it's just going to be streaming online. And then afterwards they're like, oops, we got to put some commercials in here. Where are we going to put them? And then it's totally awkward.
I found too through the whole run of the series, the season, I've found overall, the editing has been really good. Like I found the pacing is there's a lot happening, and then there's breathing room. Like overall, I found it really good. So those weird cuts I found very jarring because of that, sort of in contrast. Yeah, that must be happening. That must be what's happening. That they're.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe like a Paramount editor got a hold of it or something on the way.
Yeah, like some intern or something, and they're like, "Hey, Fred, just edit this so it works on TV." And he's like, "Okay." I'm an accountant, though. That's fine. Just do it.
I kind of wish when this eventually comes out on Blu-ray or whatever, that they would just cut it into a big 10-hour movie. Just take out all the breaks and the credits and just make it one continuous thing that I could watch over the course of like 3 days.
So you have to hold it. So you have to hold it for 10 hours. I see. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about the wrap-up. So the wrap-up is Seven gets a command, and we get to see Tuvok again. Jack Crusher somehow gets through Starfleet Academy in a year. And we have a little final poker game. How do you guys feel about the wrap up?
Well, as you know, I love the wrap up. I thought the way that they handled 7 was really good. I loved them bringing Shaw back again to do that. The officer evaluation, I thought that was really just a nice touch, because I mean, they didn't know how popular he was going to be, but he was really popular. People love him. And yeah, and I mean the Jack getting pushed through the academy, I mean, they kind of did the same thing with 7. And at least they straight up addressed it, in the dialogue, where he's basically like, nepotism, at this point, like I'm on board. I'm on board with it. Like, and I really am actually very happy. I know there are people that were like shipping Picard and Crusher hard, and like, they want some like actual specific answers about what's going to happen with their relationship. I like that they left it kind of ambiguous. I feel
as they always do.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like it actually would have been kind of weird if they hadn't. I don't know. I just feel like it would have been too, like.
You didn't hope that they got married, and then Laris from the first episode, his new Romulan fling, was sitting at that bar waiting for him to show up. It was like, he said he'd be here after he was done with that mission.
I knew he wasn't going back. I knew from that first episode, I knew Laris was just like, and that's it, we're done. Like,
hey, we're a wrap on Laris.
Oh, poor Laris.
Laris is fine. Yeah. Oh my
She's
god,
like,
Laris is so fine.
I guess I'm growing wine now. That's it. I guess I own a winery somehow.
In terms of the poker game, I mean, there wasn't another way to end it, I don't think, really. It was just to me, I think it was just a really nice chance for us to see all of them together, and to kind of celebrate not only the relationships of those characters, but also that group in general, like that group of people who genuinely love each other that much. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I liked that a lot.
Did anybody find it weird that that Geordi mentions that Guinan's given us the side eye and Guinan was not actually there? That was very odd. I was like, why even say that if she's not there? If you didn't get a scene, if you didn't get Whoopi Goldberg on set.
I feel like the only reason that they said that was just to establish this is the actual 10 forward and not the Titan.
It would have been so easy for them to get a shot of her just giving him a little like or something, because they shot the 2 seasons together and they already had Whoopi Goldberg, so
that wasn't the 10 forward on the Enterprise though, right? That was the 10 forward that Guinan owns.
The actual,
she owned the actual 10 forward. Yeah. Okay.
LA.
Okay. Yeah.
And Skid Row in LA, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What about you, Namir? How do you feel about the wrap up?
I always like to see new things. I'm generally not a big fan of when they redo scenes like that. So I feel like we'd already seen it. I would have liked to have seen something new. Like for me, if they had ended it, when they powered down the Enterprise, right? Instead of it just being the 3 of them, it was everybody. They're on the Enterprise. They leave. Riker says, "Oh, I missed that voice," which was a great line. And then they leave. The doors close, and then the bridge powers down. The lights go off. If they had just ended it there, that would have been perfect. I would have been like, "That's great. That's a solid ending." Makes me feel a little bit melancholy, but I enjoyed the ride, and I'm looking forward to what's next. But then it kept going, and I feel like the second time they did the poker scene kind of reduces the impact of the first poker scene from All Good Things, because they're different now. They should have something new, like something that's uniquely this show.
A holographic
right
poker scene?
Okay.
A VR holographic? Where they go like,
yeah, totally, yeah, exactly. That's perfect. No, I just wanted something else, right? Like, because I don't know. It didn't feel right to me. Right. I don't like that. To me, it's not quite a retcon, but it's clearly like we're pulling on these nostalgia strings, right? We're really tugging on those levers, and I generally am not a big fan of that. So that's me. But I'm a bit curmudgeonly, so I I would.
No, I think Namir's rubbing off of me because I felt the exact same way. I was like, I know. I was like, any other time I feel like I would eat this up, and then now I'm like, well, we've really done this before, and I'm like, do they really need to retread this? I'm like, I like it. I'm like, all the characters are having nice banter, but it's like at the same time, I wish they were, at Chateau Picard or something, or in his vineyard, just a different setting, maybe doing something different. Like you say, make it. And even if they had went to Chateau Picard, it could have kind of booked in this specific series because that's where it all started. But I do see what they're saying too, because I mean it also did start with Picard and Data playing poker in his dreams or whatever, and now they're playing poker. I've read somewhere, but somebody mentioned that connection. But yeah, at the same time, I was kind of hoping for something unique to this series and not just specifically a callback to All Good Things, because that was so good. Sky's the limit, and off we go. And that's what I thought too. Is when they put the light, I exactly same thought. I was like, the bridge lights going out should have been roll credits there, and they could all be, like you say, they could all have been there. So I agree with you. How odd.
Oh, wow. That's great. Could you hear me? Was I whispering in your ear? Going, this isn't good.
A little you on my I'm gonna ping you on my shoulder when I'm watching stuff.
I have one further thought on that whole thing. That in All Good Things, Picard joins late and is like, oh, I should have been doing this all along. And this time he's the one that pulls out the cards. He sits down at the table. There's one point where it's going around and it hits his face and he is just grinning. And that again for me is about this whole arc of this season and him really sort of like be finally, after 90 years, becoming comfortable with himself and with letting himself be sort of seen and loved and all of that. So again, the love, guys, the love.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's true, because I don't like, I've never looked at him that way. You know what I mean? Like that character, I've never looked at him that way. So that's an interesting kind of arc, right? Like him being able to learn how to love and be loved is not something that, and that was always my complaint. Like this character, Picard in the Picard series is not the same person as Picard from TNG or even the movies, right? And so for me, that always felt a little bit disconnected. But I can see that. Like he's kind of a closed off, really used to be closed off by the books person that's starting to open up quite a bit. So yeah, you've changed my entire way of looking at this episode. So
that's what I'm here for.
This is why I'm going to bring in new voices to our conversations. There we go.
Yeah.
I like that we got Tuvok coming back and that he wasn't just a changeling. I feel like he replaced Admiral Janeway that we were supposed to see, Kate Mulgrew, and we never got to see her. I was a little disappointed by that, but I like seeing Tuvok. I like that moment with Shaw. I thought that worked really well, and I thought it was funny when Jack Crusher came on the bridge, and she's like, "Papa squat right here, right next to me."
Yeah, but if I was somebody else on that bridge that had been working for like 15 years to get onto that bridge, and then Jack just comes along and says like, "Yeah, you get to sit right here next to me. What's your job? I don't know. Advice. You give me advice. That's it." Yeah. If I was that helmsman, I'd be like, yeah.
So what do we think was Seven's first command to get the ship going?
I thought that was a great. I mean, I thought how they did that was great. Like that
We'll
was,
find out in the spin-off.
What if it was something like choo choo?
Okay, and everybody got to see everybody saw the post-credit sequence. I only saw the post-credit sequence because I was like, it's the last episode. I'm going to watch the credits with all the music, and then Q shows up. What do we think about that?
I thought he was dead. Didn't he die? There's a whole season that was dedicated to him dying.
Yeah, but what was the first thing he said to Jack? You humans, you think so linearly,
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a master of space and time. Like, is he ever really dead? I mean, he can go past his death, before his birth.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just Q before he died.
No, don't excuse this shoddy attempt at a spin-off.
I actually, when I saw Q, I was like, that's cool, but I was like, why isn't it his son from Voyager? It could have been like Picard Junior and Q Junior, and then they start tormenting each other in a spinoff. I was like, I would have loved that.
But everybody would have been like, "Who's that guy?" Only you would
That's
know
a
what
good point.
Q Junior looks like.
I guess he could have turned himself into his son or whatever. He's like, I was like, I'm here, but I'm actually this is my dad. And I'm like, I don't know. There was something that they could have did something. They could he looks a lot like him too. So he could have just said, I'm cute.
He does. Mm-hmm.
Like, I would have known. I was like, oh yeah. He's like, that's that guy. He's just a new Q.
I
feel like
stoked. I was very, very excited. I literally was like I actually yelped when I saw him.
Yeah. I feel like that's a setup for a spinoff. Like that's it. They're just going to do Encounter Farpoint 2.0 when they start the next show.
I liked it. I had no problem seeing Q. I'm not like Namir.
Q was always a welcome face.
I just like things to make sense, and it didn't make sense. Is that so wrong? Is that a crime?
Now you want things to make sense?
I've always wanted things to make sense.
It should have been Sela. Sela should have showed up.
You know what? I agree. Actually, it should have been Sela. That would have been a great move. But but if you're a casual Star Trek viewer, you wouldn't know who Sela was, right?
I still think in retrospect that this show, the Borg should have been working with the Romulans all along, not the Changelings. Like, the Changelings had no connection to Picard. I think and the Romulans are in such disarray, and the Federation treated them so poorly when their homeworld blew up, and Picard was trying to help them. Like, there should be some sort of grievance against the Federation from the remaining Romulans, and being all scattershot everywhere. They would have made the perfect team up. But anyway, I didn't write the show. They didn't ask me. They didn't ask for my input, so I'll take it as it is.
Well, maybe that'll be in the spinoff.
I love seeing the Changelings.
I know, I like seeing them too, but really, if we're doing things that relate to Picard as a character and his past and the legacy, like, the Romulans would have made more sense than having the Changelings in the show. Say.
Okay, let's do our ratings. Let's start with Jenny. Out of 10, we're doing a rating out of 10.
What? Oh, okay. I don't know what we're doing. What are you talking about? What are we rating? Like 4 potatoes? I don't know. Okay. So I mean, can I give it 10? I'm pretty excited about this. I feel really good about it. It made me happy. I really am very satisfied with everything. I have mentally filled in all of the holes, which I think there were a couple that, anything that I found iffy, I've always just kind of done that anyway. So 10 out of 10.
Okay, let's go with Alan.
Well, again, I had a couple problems with it. So, I mean, but I think most of those are again based on my own over expectations. So maybe I should just blame myself. But again, it made me warm and fuzzy. There was lots of jokes. I was happy, But I say something inside me just wanted something a little more, more spectacle, more higher stakes. I don't know, something. I can't quite put my finger on it. So I'm gonna give this one an 8 because I know I put 9. I think I put 9 last week. So, and I feel like it didn't pay off as much as I wanted it to from the setup because I really loved the setup last week. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because I still really thought they did a really great job with this season, but it just wasn't as much as I wanted it to be. But
Okay. So, Namir, what's your rating?
Well, I was gonna, I was gonna give it a 7, but I always seem to give these episodes one less than Alan. But I'm gonna give it a 7. So I'm just gonna stick with it. It's a 7. Because I did like it, I enjoyed watching it. I had a good time, but there are things that I can't get over, and I wish they had. I wish they had spent a little bit more time making the world a little bit more believable, and what they were doing make more sense. Because I found that anytime there was something where I was like, that doesn't make any sense, it just pulled me out of it. And this episode in particular had a lot of that. But I still enjoyed it. I wish Picard had died. Not horribly, I wish he had just
heroically.
Gently in his sleep on the Borg cube. That would have been fine. But I think that would have really completed his story. And that really bothered me. So it's a 7.
I am gonna give this a 9. I was gonna give it an 8, but it's the last episode, and I wrapped everything up nicely, so I'm gonna give it a 9. And I had a good time. I had a really good time. Yes, and there was like the pew 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 inside the Borg ship, and the Borg Queen blew up, and there was fuzzy feelings and hugs, and there's a Q show up at the end. So yeah, I'll give it a 9.
That feels kind of flimsy. That feels like a flimsy reasoning for your 9. I think you just wanted to give it a 9, and you're just looking for any excuse to give it a 9. But really, in your heart, it's like an 8.
Well, that's why I was like wrestling with. I'm like, is this an 8 or a 9? And I'm like, And I don't do the half percentages or the half point like you do. There's no 0.5s or 0.8s or 0.3s.
No 11-7s.
No, none of those. But yeah, I mean, but I also feel bad because I feel like I'm being too hard on it. But I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, it's not the best it could have been. It was pretty good.
It doesn't have any feelings, Alan. You can be mean.
I didn't cry.
Okay.
Yeah, that's usually my criteria for a 10, right? Like I get weepy.
That's right.
And even this one, even though there's a lot of good beats, like I never got that I thought the waterworks were going to come on for this, and they did not.
And
even though it felt good,
when
but it didn't feel tear jerking.
You know what would have caused that to happen for you?
Picard's death.
Yep. We would all be drowning in our own tears if he died. But didn't happen.
Well, if anybody had died heroically, I probably would have, but nobody did.
So that is our review of Season 3 Picard. We will be back to review Strange New World Season 2 in June. And of course, we are continuing to review Star Trek The Next Generation. We're going to soon start with Season 2. So I hope you will come back to the channel and visit I hope you'll come back and visit our channel and like and subscribe. And that's it. Okay.
I think you got to do that all over again.
I'm not doing the whole thing over.
This crap.
Are you going to thank Jenny for joining us?
And then you have to also plug her art. You have to give her website.
Okay. I thought you had notes.
Jesus. What kind of host are you?
Amateur hour here.
The worst host. Amateur hour.
Oh man, how the heck have we doubled our subscribers just through this season? How
Yeah,
half-assed
I think we just
things.
lost 2 subscribers. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so that was our review of Star Trek Picard Season 3. Thank you very much, Jenny, for joining us. And wonderful paintings. Like, there's the one behind you.
You reconvened another time to do this.
Why we? You know what? We should just.
I think Namir was like, "You gotta plug the painting," and suddenly I got thrown.
Okay, no, you have a website, right, Jenny?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do have a website.
Would you like us to mention it?
Sure. Yes. You can find me and my work and my shop at jennyrjohnson.com. You can also find me on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Jenny R. Johnson Art, and on Twitter until it dies at Jenny R. Johnson.
All right, amazing. Thank you, Jenny, for joining us. That was awesome.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you so much.
Okay. And cut.